We all set to go, you think, or do we need to wait? We got it. Looks like we have a quorum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I think we're good. So good morning, everybody. Welcome to the TDC meeting this morning on March 20th already. And I'd like to call the meeting to order. If we have roll call, Phil, if you want to start introducing yourself, we'll kind of go around.
Phil Henderson, Starlight Cruises, South Pasadena, Madeira Beach, and Clearwater.
Good morning, everyone. Tricia Rodriguez of Tropics Boat Tours and the Clearwater Ferry.
Good morning, everyone. Dave Gaddis, Mayor of Bel Air Beach and Delegate of the Big C.
Good morning, I'm Kathleen Peters, Pinellas County.
Brian Loack, Visit St. Pete, Clearwater.
Russ Kimball, Sheraton Sand Key, Clearwater Beach.
Good morning, Doreen Moore, TRS, Travel Resort Services, Vacation Rentals throughout our great Gulf beaches.
Good morning, Clyde Smith, Bilmar Beach Resort on Treasure Island.
It's great to have you all here, and welcome to spring break. I can tell by traffic, everybody's very busy right now. So I do have, if we want to go for an approval of the minutes, if I can have a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
It's got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. And I have I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh, gosh, thank you. Mike, welcome. It's good to have you with us. So.
Good morning and greetings from Denver, Colorado.
Well, enjoy. I hope you have good powder up there if that's what you're doing.
Unfortunately, all work.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sure you can fit some play in there sometime. So we have to vote to let Mike participate, very much like our commission meetings. So if I could have a motion to allow Mike to participate via communication.
I make a motion for Mike to participate.
So we got a motion from Clyde. A second? A second from Phil. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Mike, you're going to be with us, and if you will remind me with your voice when you have a question, I just go ahead and interrupt. That's fine. So I do have a public comment, and Kevin Smith. How are you, my friend? It's good to see you. Yeah, the microphone is.
Good morning, Madam Chair.
Good to see you.
It's been a while since I've seen a lot of you. For those of you who I don't know, my name is Kevin Smith. I formerly was the director of the Sports Commission here in St. Pete, Clearwater. Now I'm a business owner here in Pinellas County. I run a sports advisory firm called On Point Sports Strategies, as well as the Collective Best, which is a national advisory firm. But I'm not here about that today. What I'm here to tell you about today is the resurgence of high school baseball down in South St. Pete. Baseball City, which was formerly the Rays Complex, the Mets, the Cardinals, the Orioles, and I do believe the Yankees may have done a little bit of time there as well. It's still down at Walter Fuller Park. It is one of your only 5-field high school level, college level facilities that is available because it is a public park that's owned by the city of St. Petersburg and managed by a private entity called the St. Pete Baseball Commission. So over the past 17 years since they've started hosting spring training, summer baseball, college level summer baseball, and then about 26 weekends a year, they have built quite a group of people and quite a following. This year, they're back from the back to the post-pandemic numbers of over 95 to 100 teams that they have coming. All of these teams are coming from outside of the state of Florida. Some of them are coming from outside the country, including Canada. So it is quite a great business that they've got going down there in St. Pete. And the baseball complex, well, you know, it's a 50-plus-year-old baseball complex, so it needs some paint and some screen doors. But that being said, they've had followings of teams. I spoke with a group from Oklahoma City yesterday. They've been coming to this park for 15 consecutive years. They fly their team, they fly their parents. They brought 2 55-passenger buses to the park every day for 7 days. And they're out there having a great time. The issue they're running into, they got a new coach, and the coach is now saying, well, I want to go to Arizona because the facilities are newer, they're this, they're that, they're a little closer, whatever the case may be. So I say this in telling you that although our baseball is back at Baseball City, these guys have really put forward a lot of effort over the last 15 to 17 years to build this program. It's a little bit under attack, and it's under threat. There are a number of college events. Because I do consulting around this country, I pretty much have an idea of what's being built and who's building it and what their purposes are. And I'll tell you that it's going to be under attack. You guys are going to, I know Caleb and his team has done a fantastic job of supporting Baseball City and supporting all sports here in Pinellas County. He has done a great job. He's got good people under the leadership of Brian, who I met this year. You guys have a fantastic opportunity. As a Pinellas County person, as a sports person in Pinellas County, even though I do consult with other companies, this is home. And I just want to make you all aware that work can be done out on Baseball City to develop it as a first-rate college facility as well as a high school facility, but there will have to be an investment made. I know the capital improvement money is coming out. However, what I will tell you is that it will be imperative that some things are done in order for them to compete in this marketplace, in order for Caleb and his team to compete in this marketplace. Those are the folks who are from the north, the west, and the south of you are all going to invest heavily in sports complexes in the next 12 months. So just to let you know, as a citizen of Pinellas County, this is a great opportunity for you to continue to move ahead in sports and do a lot of great things. Caleb and I talk regularly, and anything I can do to help him, I'm on board to do. So I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. I'll take any questions if anybody's got any.
Thank you, Kevin. Anybody have any questions for Kevin? No? Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it. Okay, we're going to move on to presentations. We have the art study. Randy Cohen.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. My name's Randy Cohen. I'm with Americans for the Arts in Washington, D.C., and we are a national organization working to make sure everyone in this country across all our communities has the opportunity to participate and engage in the arts. We have a long relationship working with tourism industry, and I've been part of the Travel and Tourism Advisory Board and worked with Brand USA and local tourism organizations everywhere. And so today I'm happy to bring to you findings from a new economic impact study of nonprofit arts and culture organizations and their audiences. And it's a large national study that includes 373 communities from across the country, including right here in Pinellas County. We worked with Creative Pinellas to look at the impact of spending by nonprofit arts and culture organizations and their attendees. Arts organizations are businesses, right? And, we all appreciate and love the arts, and, they beautify our communities, and they, make us want to travel to places. And, but the fact is, they're businesses, they support jobs, they generate government revenue, and they generate a lot of event-related spending. Think about the last time you went to an arts event. Did you sneak out of the house, see the show, and run home before, somebody, nobody saw you? Probably not. You may have paid for parking and had dinner and saw the show and went out afterwards and got home and paid for some babysitting and, dog walking or something like that. Or you travel. People travel and include arts and culture in their decision-making about where to travel. So we worked with Creative Pinellas. We've surveyed 200 nonprofit arts and culture organizations. We focus on nonprofit organizations in this study, which also includes, it might include a city-owned performing arts center or a state museum, but it doesn't include in this particular study Hollywood Motion Pictures or architecture firms. This is a community-wide impact study of which there's important visitor and tourism data that comes out of that. We work with a team of economists to do our research. We use an in-plan platform, which we met with the economic development folks at the county yesterday, same economic analysis platform that they use. And we take a really conservative approach to economic impact. We surveyed 200 organizations. We heard back from 72 of them. That's what we use. We only use data from the organizations that provide it. So every number that I talk about today, we can put our hands on. So what do we find out? So this is for fiscal 2022, an arts community that was emerging from the pandemic, which was absolutely devastating for the arts. Right here in Pinellas County, total economic activity of the arts and culture industry, $294.7 million of economic activity. And that figure is actually composed of two numbers. First, spending by the organizations themselves. That's just the 72 responding organizations, $126.8 million. And again, we all love and appreciate the arts, but the fact is they're businesses, they employ people locally, they purchase goods and services from other businesses, and they're members of the Chamber of Commerce, and they help promote and market the region. Arts organizations are good business citizens. Now, like any business, of course, they have a measurable economic impact, right? Unlike most industries, they generate all that event-related spending, when we go out to an arts event. Just those 72 organizations, 4.1 million attendees in 2022. And so those are attendees across the community. You add up the dollars, that's $167.9 million in spending by arts audiences. All right, so that's the economic activity. What's the economic impact of that spending? Well, the first thing we look at is jobs. 4,528 jobs supported right here in Pinellas County. Something about arts jobs, these aren't, arts organizations employ more than artists and curators. They've also got accountants and auditors and plumbers and electricians and security staff and box office folks, and then they also included in this 4,528 number is the hospitality, a job supported, right? The waiters and the people working at hotels for lodging and that type of thing. Something else about these arts jobs, necessarily local jobs. This is not an industry that's going to be offshored. When we invest in the arts, these are jobs staying right in the community. We need the curators at the museums hanging the art. We need the performers on the stage doing their work, or the arts educators in the schools, or the arts therapists in the hospitals. Bottom line, arts, not just food for the soul, but putting food on the table for 4,528 households right here in Pinellas County. We also look at government revenue, $58.9 million in revenue to local, state, and federal government. A lot of folks think, yes, it's important we support the arts, but they kind of see those dollars as like, on a one-way train ride out of town. But the fact is they return dollars in the form of revenue, and the economic models capture, hotel taxes and sales taxes and all the different ways local, state, and federal government bring in their revenue. Small investment, big returns. That's the arts. Now, to dig in a little bit to the audience spending piece, and to gauge like the how those 4.1 million attendees are spending their dollars, the Creative Pinellas, and working with some of the municipalities within the county, did a sample across the community of 1,415 attendees at a whole range of arts events. So that's performing events, that's visual arts and its free festivals and the like. But again, only at these nonprofit arts and culture organizations. So this is really community impact figures, includes a lot of the local dollars that are spent. So what we found is the typical attendee to an arts and culture event spends $35.62 per person per event, not including the cost of admission. So you look at these pieces of the pie, none of those are the admission fee. Now, we actually ask about admission, but we count those dollars as income to the arts organizations, and then they are the ones that we spend in the community. We do that just to avoid the double count. You're probably looking at some of these and, perhaps lodging, and $4.92. Remember, this is an average, right? I'll give you some lodging figures in a second. But typically, this is a pretty similar spread in terms of share of, majority spent on food and drink and restaurants, and local transportation would be parking and some of these other expenditures. Not everybody's got childcare. You can't get a babysitter for 57 cents anymore, right? So that's just an average across the community. We also ask those attendees for their zip code, because we want to find out what percentage of folks live in Pinellas County, would make them local. Are they from outside the county? 34% of attendees come from outside of Pinellas County, so a third. And do they spend differently? Yeah, of course they do. $46.37 on average spending by the non-local attendees. We also asked those non-local attendees another question, which was, why are you here? Are you here on business? Are you here visiting friends and family? We gave them a list of things. 84%, so more than 4 in 5 said, we came specifically for this arts event. So you can really see the pulling power that the arts have, right? That's bringing these folks to town. Now, most of those people, those non-local folks, are day trippers. But to give you some numbers, 34% of attendees from outside the county, 8% of those folks have a lodging cost. They average $205 per person per night, not including the cost of admission. And, if you're usually, traveling with a partner or something, so that's going to mean a $400 day, for example. So, but again, I really want to emphasize that this is, a much broader community impact study where we're able to pull out some of these visitor spending findings. Really good economic data there. We've done a big national public opinion survey we do every couple years. I work closely with Miles Partnership, which I know works here in the county as well, one of the big tourism consultancies out there. And we develop these cultural tourism questions that we did last summer. And it's the largest public opinion study of the arts ever conducted. We do over 3,000 interviews. So now we're at some national level data. But what you see, 79% of the public says the arts bring people to our community, are good for tourism. So there's a good public understanding of that as well. 70%, the arts help create a sense of identity in our community. And just slightly more than half says, I consider a destination's arts and culture experiences and opportunities when choosing where I am going to visit. So that's a national finding. Zeroing in a little bit, again, back to Pinellas County. All those attendees that we interviewed, we asked them a couple of additional non-financial questions, and over 80%, for example, said this arts and culture event is a source of pride and community identity. I'd feel a sense of loss if this arts event were no longer available. So the people in this community really see the arts as central to their lives and central to the community. So that's a real snapshot of the report. It's a 58-page report. It's online. It's fully available there, everything I talked about, and we've got a lot more data in there about volunteerism and more details on the expenditures and the like, but I wanted to give you just a couple of highlights today of the study.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Questions?
Phil, go ahead.
Back on your third slide, I think about the spending.
Yes.
Later on, you mentioned that spending you were talking about was not including admissions.
Right.
So is that what this is?
Yeah, that's
167 million is
yes,
not
right. So
on-
that is just the audience spending, the 100
outside of the.
outside of admissions, correct?
Wanted to
Yeah.
clarify. Thanks.
Chuck.
Good morning. when it comes to the arts, we all think of visual arts easy, you know, museums, but performing arts is also arts. Are you counting a Reggae in the Park in St. Petersburg last weekend, which is a performing arts? Is that part of these numbers, or it's such a gray line where art stops and
Right. So we do include performing arts, and we take a pretty, big umbrella look at, the arts. It's performing arts, it's exhibitions, it's music, it's theater. But this study actually focuses on that nonprofit sector. So some of these big festivals that you have in town are fabulous. And if they're for-profit commercial ones, they're just not part of this study. And again, we just do that because we're also trying to provide a really specific ROI measure for the public and private sector. When they're investing in the arts, typically that's where those dollars are going, right? Those nonprofit organizations. And so we're just saying, hey, here's that investment. Obviously, you're getting cultural benefits. Here's some jobs and government revenue benefits. But that wider lens, of course, is hugely important as well, but it includes all of those arts. And again, across the whole community. And what we do see in the tourism research, domestically, internationally, travelers looking for authentic cultural experiences. And so they want to get to the big events, and, it might be the big couple-day concerts and everything. But they also want to experience more and more. We see, the different neighborhoods, different racial, ethnic groups, and their art and their culinary and that type of thing. So folks attending the arts are willing to get off the path, sort of the main street and all as well. So that's why we captured so much. So that's why that number, 4.1 million attendees, is really significant. I mean, I know, a lot of the tourism data, and this is, kind of a small number if you look at it, just sort of stack it up next to each other. But remember, you're multiplying this times 4.1 million just right here for the county.
Excellent answer, and I just want to thank you. Great report. We have taken a focus on the arts as it relates to tourism over the last 7 years, and it's increased in our budget quite a bit, and this just magnifies it when you see 4.1 million attendees and almost 300 million in direct spending just in Pinellas County in 2022 alone. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, based on your sampling, it looks like out of the 1,400 people that were surveyed for this chart, it generates only not even 30 room nights. That seems very low for even that 34% that were the non-local. Is that accurate?
I think there'd be more than that. So 34% of attendees, non-local, 8% of those said they had a lodging cost. So that's the math. So that's out of the 4.1 million. So you just keep reducing the base. So
Okay.
that number is.
Seems low. Okay, thank you.
Any additional question?
Yes, if I may. Nice presentation. Tell us, you were here representing Creative Pinellas, I presume?
Yes.
And what's your company, and do you do other studies besides this, or who do you work
Yeah, so I work for Americans for the Arts in Washington, D.C., and we work to advance the arts very broadly, but our primary constituency are the Creative Pinellases across the country. And there's actually several thousand of those local arts advancement organizations. So we work in partnership with them. And again, on this economic impact study, Creative Pinellas was one of 373 communities across the country that were just part of this study.
All right, thank you.
Any additional questions? Doreen?
Randy, you might also want to point out that with Creative Pinellas, those 72 partners that also contributed information and surveys, and I found it interesting that there were partners that would have liked to have, whether it was municipalities or local areas, that didn't have the staffing to be able to perform and help with the surveys. So it isn't that they weren't interested or that the results, so those 72 partners. So you might want to mention how that stacks
absolutely.
up.
So so in Pinellas County, again, we surveyed a little over 200 of the arts and culture organizations. 72 organizations responded. We were able to do some customized studies for Safety Harbor, for Clearwater, for example, because they were able to drill down, do some additional focus surveys, audience intercept surveys. They're actually included in the county-wide number, but a couple communities were able to say, yeah, it's really important for us to have a municipal version of this also. And those that have the capacity to do that, do it. Greater Pinellas did a great job actually on this, and even that audience sample survey, we only tell folks they only need 850 to get us a statistically valid sample, and actually even that's an oversample. But so it's really solid data. I would just add that also.
Any additional questions? Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, and next we're going to go to Public Relations. Jason Latimer.
Good morning. Good to see everybody. Get my glasses going. So I appreciate the time today. I just wanted to take a few minutes just to run through some of the recent activity that we've taken part in, and also some of the media coverage that you may have seen. And if you didn't, hopefully this is a nice place to look at it. So you may remember we mentioned back, I think a few meetings ago, we have hosted ITV here back in November, which is one of the top British networks. Their host, Jimmy Doherty, did an entire tour of Florida and created a 5-part special. One of those specials, one of the episodes was focused here on St. Pete Clearwater. So we took Jimmy out, if you can see the boat on the top left, took him out fishing at Hubbard's Marina, and also visited on the top right to Brick Street Farms in St. Petersburg. So like I said, there was a 5-part series. We were a part of that. It also appears on streaming. Waiting for the full report to come back, but the early estimation was that this is between 7 and 9 million UK viewers are able to have access to this and view this special. So this is a really great partnership for us that created some great media attention. There was also articles written in UK about this that furthered that exposure for us. So excited to see that one come through. And then you may have seen to start March, we had a great spot on Good Morning America where they called out St. Pete Clearwater as a great place to go to instead of Miami. I think we all saw the attention that South Florida may have received, but this was part of some aggressive pitching by our PR firm and ourselves that we wanted to position ourselves as a great spot for families for spring training or for spring break, and to have a great atmosphere for everybody to come enjoy our nice weather that's going on right now. So we had a few of these that showed up, but I thought this was a great example. Just seeing on Good Morning America them talk about us. I think you'll also notice, hopefully you have, we've taken a pretty aggressive approach to local media. Really been trying to get out there as much as possible and share with the impact that tourism is in our local community. That's something that's very purposeful on our part, to build relationships and build our brand here locally, and then continue to expand that out beyond just St. Pete Clearwater. So in addition to this, we've also had several mentions in Southern Living, Reader's Digest, and Atlanta Journal and Constitution that have come along. And like I said, as we continue to position ourselves, St. Pete Clearwater as not just, a springtime destination, we can take this further out throughout the year. We've set some goals as we look ahead to the fiscal year, and I know, budgeting comes later. But, as we start to talk about some of those goals and objectives, that we want to look to continue to explore media placement in these targeted markets to go along with our marketing plan. And also some emerging markets then beyond in UK, Scandinavia, and Central Europe. We also want to dig deeper in developing storylines here in our destination to help tell the story of actually, who lives here, why they live here, and what the great benefit is of coming and spending some time and your money here. Just wanted to review as well, we've had a couple of great media missions that we've taken part in. Had the very fortunate in my short time here to be able to travel to New York to the International Media Marketplace. This is where a gathering spot for top travel media for U.S. and Canada, and then also replicated that in London the next month in February, where we met with UK media, helping out with our PR firms, meeting with upwards of 50 journalists and having good one-on-one conversations with these journalists to really help them understand, what we have to offer here in St. Pete Clearwater, and also learn about what they want to write about and how we can fit into their narratives. So these are great coverages, or great meetings that we're able to gain coverage out of. Just in these short times, we've already had 3 or 4 media visits that have been organized from these meetings. We have a couple more that we continue to discuss with. But these are crucial for us for building relationships with media, but also helping spread that word, like I said, about what we have here, that everybody can fit into their storyline in some way, because we do have so much to offer. We have IPW coming up in May, which is a large gathering as well, media in Mexico City, in LA, but we're going to focus a lot on Mexico City with the announcement that Aeromexico we'll have that direct flight, so really getting that organized right now to have some productive conversations. While we were in New York, I did want to mention this. I know this came up before, but the New York Shuffleboard event that we held while we were up there in January to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the St. Pete Shuffleboard Club. We had a kind of exclusive invite only. We invited about 20 targeted media members to come out. And had a night at the Royal Palms Shuffleboard Club in Brooklyn, where we got to use the Shuffleboard Club's anniversary as a hook in order to talk about, like I said, the larger things. So I brought with me, you can see it in the picture, but we did make commemorative discs as well, which were a take-home for the 20 journalists, just so they could have something that they could refer to quite regularly when they see us, and they know that we're calling them back. Hit the wrong button. There we go. And then media visits. As you know, we do host media here throughout the year. We hosted 37 journalists last year. We've been a little bit more aggressive this year. We're upwards of nearly 30 media visits already in fiscal year 2024. We just got done earlier this week, hosting our 3rd spring training focused media visit. We hosted the Globe and Mail and Toronto Sun from Canada, and then also Philadelphia Magazine. Focus on the teams obviously playing, but all the other amenities that we have in the area while you're down visiting. So these are very important. These are hands-on experience for the journalists, so that they can actually see and experience and relay back to the readers and viewers about what they're experiencing and what we have to offer here. Coming up in April, we've got the Scottish Herald coming, which is, if not the oldest, one of the oldest publications in the world. They're going to come cover the Highland Games in Dunedin and visit the area. We've also got a group from UK coming in April, and then focusing on a group trip for UK and US media in May with a nature focus and getting outside and all that we have to offer here. And just a couple other things I did want to mention. Brian and I have talked about, instead of just having this be once in a while, we're producing a weekly email with what these coverage clips are, and I think what we'd like to do is start sending that to the TDC. So you're going to start receiving that email then weekly, so that you can see what some of these coverage that we're receiving on a regular basis. And then also wanted to share that we did open up and create a new position for a communications manager, which is going to bridge both public relations and marketing, tie that together. So we're very far along in the process of filling that with a very capable individual. So looking forward to that person starting here in the very near future. That's what I got.
Anybody have any questions? Okay.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Oh, yes, Mike.
Jason, great report. Really appreciate it. Just wanted to remind everyone that Pinellas County will be highlighted on national TV over the next 4 days, with the Valspar Championship being contested on Innisbrook's Copperhead course. And it will be plenty of media opportunities, Jason. Hopefully you're going to be out there and take advantage of what is turning out to be one of the great events, annual events that takes place in Pinellas County.
That's a great point, Mike. I will be out there tomorrow on day one of the official tournament. I do want to mention that's a great point. So we've now had January, we were on national TV with Royal Rumble. And then February, or March, I guess, again, we were on national TV with the Grand Prix in St. Pete. And now, once again, we're going to be on national TV with Valspar. So it continues to line up. We continue to get great exposure. That's something we want to keep pounding on as much as possible. So I've been in contact with Rick up there in Innisbrook and look forward to joining you guys tomorrow.
Great, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mike, for bringing that to our attention. Brian?
Yeah, I just want to take the time to recognize and thank Jason. Since he's come on last, I guess it's been about 6 months now.
6 months.
He's a machine, and it's whether it's internally bridging that communications gap within our internal departments and staff, local media. I think any time that I have a block open on our calendars, he's on the horn with local media, getting interviews set up. Same thing with fam visits, and he touched on the trip where we had where we filmed in Destination with Hubbard's Marina. They did a catch, clean, and cook right there on John's Pass at the boardwalk. There's a lot that goes into that stuff. It doesn't just happen. So just a shout out to Jason, everything that he's doing, and we appreciate what you've done since you've been here.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for all your hard work. Any other questions?
I was just going to add something.
Trish.
I was just going to add something with regard to large media. I saw on the Kelly Clarkson show at the Sugar Sand Festival, so a shout out to and all of them at the Sugar Sand Festival. It was a special mention 2 different times, so it was another one.
Yeah, that was the sugar. I don't want to take credit for the hard work the Sugar Sand Festival folks did on that, but yeah, amazing to be there, and that all that does is just continue to reinforce, and any mentions that we can like that makes people interested, right? Great.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you all.
And we're going to move on to the elite funding with Kylie Diaz and Craig Campbell.
Good morning, everyone. I am Kylie Diaz, Vice President of Community Engagement with Visit St. Pete Clearwater, and this is my Director of Brand Engagement and Community, Craig Campbell. So we're happy to be here with you today to talk about some proposed guideline changes to the Elite Event Funding Program. We are actually proud to have both Valspar and Sugar Sand as part of that Elite Event Program, so some good mentions that we just had. Craig is going to now take you through the proposed guideline changes, and if any of you have questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Good morning, everyone. Kylie, thank you for the introduction. It is March Madness season, which can mean only one thing, that it's also Elite Event Funding season. So excited today to present to you our proposed changes for the Elite Event Funding Program. Before we dive into some of these changes, just a couple things real quick as far as the budget goes. There's a couple things that will not be changing. First of which, our $2 million budget cap. That is remaining flat for this coming fiscal year, and accordingly, we are also not adjusting any of the maximum funding levels for any of the categories of funding. So those 2 things are not changing, but there are a couple items here that we'll run through right now. Is there something you want to add? You good? Okay. All right, so as far as proposed changes goes, enhancement events. So historically, in the previous guidelines, all events were considered elite events. So whether you are category 1 with a large attendance, room night generator, exposure, you were lumped in with events that were, totally new events with unknown exposure, and we called everything elite. But we thought it prudent to help delineate what is truly elite versus what is more of an enhancement to the destination. So we came up with this concept of destination enhancement events. Moving forward, categories 1, 2, and certain category 3 events will be considered elite versus the remaining category 3 events and categories 4 and 5 would be considered your destination enhancement events. So there's technically two types of events with two separate processes, and I'll go through those processes right now. But just wanted to sort of flag that adjustment in the guidelines there. Number two here, so we'll address the elite event funding cycle. So that will essentially stay the same as it's been the past several years. There's one funding cycle, and we will follow the same procedure. VSBC will receive all the applications, provide our recommendations to the board, and then you will provide your recommendations to the BCC. No changes there for the elite events. For the destination enhancement events, we are actually opening up a second cycle. So they will apply this coming first cycle, but also 5 or 6 months from now, we open up a second cycle. And the purpose of that, many of these events, we get approached all the time, weekly, if not daily basis, by events that are seeking funding for an event coming up in 2, 3, 5, 6 months from now. And unfortunately, the answer is no. We're kind of, we're tied up with our elite event funding, so we'll have to get you on the next cycle. But opening up this second cycle will allow additional flexibility for us to look at some of these destination enhancement events. So excited to roll that out this year. A few other kind of adjustments, clarifications that we've made in the guidelines themselves. There's a little bit of a gray area that might have been confusing for some of the applicants previously as far as marketing goes. We've now totally, hopefully, addressed this where marketing is considered pre-event expenditures. So those expenses need to be made well in advance of the event leading into it to be considered marketing. And then sponsorship is anything on site. So that's our exposure. If we have a booth, signage, any sort of presence on site, we are lumping that into sponsorship. So we adjusted some of the verbiage to clear that up. And then one item that was flagged through the last funding cycle was a better definition for broadcast and also establishing some criteria for what we mean by broadcast for Category 1. So those are the bigger changes, other, minor changes here and there, but those are the ones that certainly wanted to bring to your attention. So this is more of a refresher. So again, the maximum funding levels and the categories, the criteria, none of this is changing from last year. But wanted to walk through just so we're all on the same page here. So Category 1s, those are your, Valspar Championships, Grand Prix of the world, 50,000 attendees or 15,000 room nights. Category 1 does require a national broadcast along with that, and we've established, this is the new piece that I just mentioned, a minimum of 100,000 views for that broadcast, which is pretty generous there. But the maximum funding is $150,000 for Category 1, and this would be an elite event. Category 2, also elite event, 15,000 attendees or 4,500 room nights, and the maximum funding at $75,000. And then Category 3, here's where we kind of divide up, or the dividing line for elite events and destination enhancement events. So if an event can validate 3,000 room nights, we would consider that to be an elite event. If they cannot, but they can validate 10,000 attendees, we would consider that destination enhancement event. So the maximum funding for that is $25,000. And then Category 4, 7,500 attendees. There's no room night criteria there, and $20,000 is the maximum funding. And then Category 5 is for any new event that has no prior history in the county with the max of $15,000 there. One other footnote here. So as you all probably recall, this program has just grown tremendously over the past 4 or 5 years. I think we had 15, 16, 18 events 5 years ago. We had 47 applications this past year, and we're just expecting that number and that interest to grow. So accordingly, and with the budget remaining flat, just to set an expectation here, we will be looking at these applications through a microscope here. So we're going to be judging these things a little bit harder making sure we're selecting the best events that we can. So heads up there. And then lastly, next steps. So as far as the timeline goes, today's sort of the kickoff, the unveil. We are scheduled to be on the books with the BCC April 23rd, and assuming that goes well, we have the final approval for these changes. We would launch the application on Wednesday, May 1st. So we're looking at a May application window. We will host a public information meeting. Last year was a webinar, and maybe in person, so the format's TBA, but we'll be ironing out those details here in the coming weeks. And then application deadline Friday, May 31st. They have the entire month of May to get those in. And then we will really fast track the review process internally in June, aiming for July TDC review and an August BCC review. So those are the highlights. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Brian, I know you have a comment.
Yeah, I just want to make two quick comments. I want to emphasize 2 points that I want you to take away from this when you consider allowing us to move forward with this. First and foremost is the big differentiator here is that those elite events will continue to go through the process that you're used to. We score them, make recommendations, bring them to you. You all make recommendations, pass them to the BCC. At that point, there's an up to amount, and then we go back and negotiate on what those deliverables are. The differentiator here is on those smaller destination enhancement events. What we're proposing is that we would score those, and then we would administratively make those recommendations. Once that occurs, we would then enter into negotiations on the contracts with those. They would then go to the BCC on receipt and file, signed off under the Director of Administrative Services, just like typical award grants in that amount. The second thing is on that timeline, we do think we have the ability to push that up so long as things go according to plan. So that timeline could be pushed up about a month.
Tricia.
I was going to ask, with regard to the 2 cycles, how are you going to manage the budget behind it?
That's kind of the million-dollar question here. We're ironing out some of these logistics. So essentially, the priority here is the category 1s and 2s. And, you know, they'll have their one chance to get their funding application in. We'll award that funding if it's worthy. And then it's whatever change is left after that, we'll see. We'll kind of cross that bridge at that point.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Clyde.
Yep, that was one of my questions that she asked. The other is on the broadcast. Is that strictly TV broadcast, or will that include social media, TikTok, other types of?
So we did define a little more clearly. So, all right. So bottom of page 1 of the broadcast, and I don't, apologies if you don't have a copy of this, but I'll read it verbatim here. So broadcast shall mean a national broadcast service such as network cable, streaming service, connected TV, online video, over the top, or other viewing platforms. So it gives some real examples, and then, but there is some flexibility there. And ultimately, you know, we review all of these applications as a committee, and we agree or disagree to
Thank you.
whether it's worthy.
Yes.
Gaddis.
Would it be possible to get a breakdown of last year's categories, how the money was distributed, just for comparison, so I would be better prepared for this year?
100%.
Thank you.
And Mayor Gaddis, just to give you a heads up, a high-level breakdown of it was about 75% Category 1 and 2 elite events, and the remaining approximately 25% would be what we are proposing to be called destination enhancement events.
Ryan, if I could just expand on that. Those additional, what we would consider now as destination enhancement events, it was around the $300,000 mark. So there was a significant amount of those events, but it was around the $300,000 mark of that budget.
Chuck.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm still hoping to dig a little deeper on the budget. So we have, how much, again, do we put as a max for this elite events that we're going to put in our budget?
$2 million.
$2 million. So of that $2 million, you get these submitted and score them. And how much typically do you bump up against the cap? This year happens to be $2 million.
So this year, with the 47 applications, the total request out of the 47 exceeded 2.6 million. And then we graded all the events. We ultimately funded 35 out of those 47, and that still exceeded 2 million. It was about 2.1 million, and I believe we had to ask for a waiver to exceed the 2 million.
So then to follow up, if we have a second round with the destination enhancements, and you've already capped out your 2 million, do you come back to the TDC, i.e. the BCC, for increase in funding mid-year? Is that the plan?
Chuck, that 2 million threshold is not what we just put in the budget. That's what's defined in the tourist development plan. So we would not plan to come forward with a request for additional budget amendment on that. And I think that second cycle is not a guarantee by any means. What we're looking to do is we do on occasion get these events that come forward and say, hey, we heard about elite events. We think our event is great and would be eligible for that. And we want to be able to provide, if there's additional funds left, the ability to review and potentially fund that. But there's by no means will there be guaranteed funds for that second cycle.
And I appreciate that. I think it's a great idea to be flexible. We're in the tourism business. We're certainly flexible on our side of the table with our guests. So I applaud the effort that you're opening them up to these up and coming, which do greatly enhance the tourist experience when they get to go to some of these smaller festivals. I'm just concerned, that's why I asked the question, if you typically cap out, I don't want to lose out that flexibility. So if you got the question asked, but you'd already spent all 2 million, you'd already budgeted all 2 million, are you going to have that flexibility to come back and say, yeah, we are going to fund these events? Can the BCC give us a little bit more money?
Yeah, and I think it's up to our staff to really dig in, and Craig mentioned it, and really score these tough, right? And just because you qualify and you meet the minimum standard doesn't mean we're going to recommend that your event be funded. And what we saw last cycle, for instance, the recommendation after the scoring was a few $100,000 below that $2 million threshold. And then once we came to the TDC, a lot of those no new events were funded that were not recommended to be funded. However, a number of events that were recommended at a certain funding level were then upped to double or triple the funding they requested. And that's where we got into going over that cap. So I'm confident that the team will be able to score these, rank them, grade them, and on these destination enhancement events, make sound recommendations.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Nice job.
Okay. Russ, did you have a question? Okay. Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just curious as to what year this budget cap was set in the plan. Does anyone know?
2012.
2012.
And we can confirm that and get back to you.
Thank you.
Russ, do you have a question? Then we'll get to you, Phil.
I was going to just say that I think these are great new steps, great new improvements. I think we made some a few years ago, and when it comes time, I'll be glad to make a motion that we accept this new plan.
Phil?
Most of my questions have been answered, but to reflect, it was originally called New Product Development, and then became Special Event Grants. And then the Great Recession occurred, and at about that time, we had a lot of smaller destination enhancement events applying for these dollars that were really meant to be bigger events. So I applaud your thinking on this, just kind of split them off into two different things. When we came back, that's what we called it, elite. We wanted to make sure they were bigger events that had an impact on the area, a defined impact, not just an enhancement, as you will. The budget was $2 million in the plan, and I think it was $2 million in the plan before we nixed the special event budget. We hit the Great Recession. We had to cut back on things, so we limited that, and that allowed us to kind of reboot the whole program under elite, and the $2 million remains. So the $2 million's been around, I said 2012. That's when we started the elite event. But prior to that, I think it was $2 million in the plan for a number of years before that. So there may be, now may be the time to look at upping that a little bit, since the overall budget of the TDC has grown by probably 10 times almost since the thing was founded. Lost my train of thought there. Perhaps it could branch into two separate things altogether and have its, the destination enhancement events maybe have its own budget, because if you don't apply now, you're saying it's just those that happen to come along later in the year, you give an opportunity if the money's there, but pretty much everybody will be lumped back into trying to apply at this time of year to make sure they're included and not just taking the leftovers. So if you had your own separate, maybe you'd split that off into two different timeframes to ask. That may be a better approach, since you're looking at kind of changing this whole plan.
And if I can just comment on what Phil said, we want to continue to attract these events to our destination and continue to be a destination where these events are drivers of attendees and overnight room nights. So we just want to make sure that we continue to grow this program. So just to comment on what you said.
Great. And Brian, if you could come back next month and kind of give us the history on that $2 million, that'd be great. Okay, perfect.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mike.
Thank you. I appreciate all the comments that everyone's made. I couldn't agree more with Phil. I too believe that we need to revisit the $2 million cap. We have events that Jason highlighted earlier that put Pinellas County on a national stage, and opportunities for us to fund these events for a higher amount, I think makes great sense. Secondly, I wanted to just thank Craig and Kylie for streamlining this process. Over the last several years, we've gone through many different iterations of this approval process, and I think this is the best one that I've seen so far. I'm fully supportive of it. Brian, you and the team have done an outstanding job, and it makes it a lot easier for us to approve and recommend to the BCC what funding these events should receive. So well done.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Kylie, did you have a comment?
Well, in addition, I just wanted to I wanted to thank Terry Tuxhorn, Vice President of Administration and Finance with Visit St. Pete Clearwater, Brian Loack, CEO, and Amanda Coffey, Managing District County Attorney. Thank you.
Wonderful. No more questions?
One last comment.
Oh, Phil, one more.
One last comment, echo what Mike said. Glad that the staff has taken us on. Back when we were doing this in the early days, it was a committee amongst us, and we reviewed maybe 12 or 15 applicants. 47? Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for your presentation. We appreciate it. And we'll have some follow-up on the budget. Russ?
Do we need a motion at this time to accept it? This direction?
Yeah, we'll go ahead with the motion on that. If we take a motion, then we'll take this to the BCC, and we will follow up in the future on the budget issue. So if I can get a motion?
I'd like to make the motion that we accept this new presentation on how we handle elite events and destination enhancement. And I like the word that Greg said also, that this is a working document as we are right now as we move forward. So that's the key to this whole thing, to help answer other questions as we go forward. So I make this a motion.
Second.
We got a second from Mayor Ongst. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, great. So we'll move on to some more arts. We're going to look at the Symphony Data Dashboard with Patrick Smighton.
Yes, good morning. Thanks, Madam Chair, members of the board. Thanks for having me this morning. My name is Patrick Smighton. I'm here representing tourism economics and our product, Symphony. So you all have committed to this, so we appreciate that commitment. And we've been working very closely for the last several months with Eddie and his team on making a lot of connections, really kind of enhancing your data as an organization. Just a real brief background, our company is based in Philadelphia, so I'm sure not the only one here this month representing Philadelphia with Philly Spring Training right down the road, of course. Tourism economics, we work with clients across the globe in the tourism space. We focus a lot on destination marketing organizations like Visit St. Pete Clearwater. We work with lots of other organizations, public officials, government entities to kind of just help understand what's happening in their communities with tourism. We do economic impact analysis, we do custom work on certain events, and certainly Symphony is a major part of our company. So Symphony specifically is really about connecting data and bringing data to life for organizations like Visit St. Pete Clearwater. We've connected to over, we brought in over 20 plus dashboards that your team is now able to use on an ongoing basis. And looking at the usage that the Visit St. Pete Clearwater team has had in place just since September of last year, we track 100 plus destinations that are using this platform. Visit St. Pete Clearwater is the 15th most views, and of the top 14, all have been using it for over a year. So certainly your organization is very excited and interested in using this data, helping, again, enhance the information that you have as an organization. So that's great to see. What types of data? So it's really a lot about internal KPIs and metrics that your team is performing on a monthly basis, taxes, room revenue, what's happening with visitation, some data that we bring in, data on credit card spending from a vendor, data on visitation, data on how people are interacting with your site and visiting the market, and some proprietary data that our team provides. An example of that is bringing in workforce intelligence. So what's happening in the marketplace with workforce? We know it's been a major issue for the last several years in this industry. So we combine data from BLS. Our team analyzes open rates in the industry to help really understand what's happening to destinations. How are they filling that gap on the leisure and hospitality employment side? So delivering that data along with several other data sets. Just a couple quick examples, and then I'll get into some specific data, but certainly I know Eddie has a lot prepared in his section as well. So visitor card spending, this is a data source we bring in from TransUnion, brings in what are people spending that are visiting from outside the market, what areas are they spending that money on, retail, food and beverage. It's based on all credit card swipes in the market. So my coffee I bought this morning is counted. Really anything across the board. It does a little bit kind of under-report lodging based on those transactions being taken place online. But really, anytime someone's swiping a card that doesn't live in this area, and if they're swiping a card at business in your county, we're able to track that. It's a sample, but it's a really, really broad sample of many different types of card spend. So really kind of gives us a good idea. Again, food and beverage, retail, transportation, entertainment, where are they from, what sort of demographics can we tell about them from the card holders themselves, what's their age, what's their household income level, and how does that maybe relate to what this team is marketing on to bring people into the county. So just kind of a live example of how the dashboard works. A lot of filtering. Dashboards are delivered through Tableau online, and our team maintains these weekly, monthly, sometimes daily updates just to keep the data fresh for the team to be able to use. Another major component is mobile location data, and again, I'm sure Eddie's going to focus a lot of his presentation on this, and I do have some examples here coming up on what's happening for the market. This is really, really critical data. This is information from people's cell phones. So when they come into the market and they're sharing the location, we can tell where they're going in the market. What points of interest are they visiting? For example, are they visiting the beaches? Are they visiting some of your merchants? Are they visiting some of the downtown districts? Tropicana Field, for example, for the Royal Rumble, we had data on that in terms of outside the area visitation. And where else are they going in the market? So really, really valuable, really, really insightful information. We can then connect that to how people are interacting with your website. So if people from a certain area, they're trying to find out what's happening in Pinellas County. They might be Googling it, they might come across your website. Maybe 2 months down the road, they come in, they visit. We can tie that visitation to that visit to the site. That means they're engaged in your organization's media, engaged in the organization's website content, it's helping drive the visitation to the market. So it's really kind of critical, helps kind of show the ROI on what the destination organization's doing on behalf of the market. So some specific data here, again, some examples, and again, I know Eddie's has a lot more to come in the next portion of the presentation. A major part of the data is lodging. So we connect to the STR data for the destination, includes both data for the destination itself, for the county, some submarkets. So how are different areas of Pinellas County performing? How are some of your competitive markets performing? So we have lots of different views on that. This is just a quick snapshot of the last couple of years' performance, total supply in the market, total demand, and how's that revenue flowing. Seeing just a slight decline in demand in January and actually February. We just updated that data this week. But kind of looking at some of the competitive markets, some similar trends across much of Florida, just a slight decline in year-over-year performance in what we're seeing earlier in 2024. Also connecting to key data. I don't have an example here. Again, I know Eddie has a lot of that in his presentation. Connecting to key data, what's happening outside of the traditional hotel front. The vacation rental management, we know it's a major part of this destination, so tracking that performance on an ongoing basis. This is an example of that data from NEAR, so this is mobile location. So for the last 12 months into January 2024, what does the visitor look like who's coming to the area? Almost 2/3 that are staying overnight are coming from outside the state of Florida. A large amount of those are coming from outside the general area. You're seeing visitation from states like Georgia, Ohio, Texas, North Carolina. And actually, those states kind of overperformed. I looked at the dates right around Royal Rumble for Tropicana Field. And outside of Florida, you're seeing visitation from states like Ohio, North Carolina, Georgia, Texas attending that event. Another great way to kind of stratify that data is based on how far is that visitor coming from. So they're coming from within 50 or 250 miles. Are they coming from beyond 250, kind of that outside the state visitation line? And you know, within the dashboard, we can segment that data very, very tightly, 500 plus miles. So what are some of your top markets that are 500 plus miles from the area? So that long-term stay, that overnight visitor that you're looking for, that's going to spend a lot of time, you're going to spend a lot of money in the destination. So helping understand that, helping see the seasonality trends. Maybe you're getting a little bit more closer in visitation in the summer, a little bit further out visitation in the spring peak season. Another major component is visitor credit card spending, as I mentioned earlier. So this is some of the data just from January. We have this data for the last year and a half plus in the dashboard. So this is based on, again, where that credit card's being billed. So if someone's coming from Orlando, New York, Fort Myers, Miami, et cetera, and when are they swiping that card in the destination? So interesting takeaway here, a lot of the visitor spend's coming from outside the Florida markets. And from markets like New York, Boston, Chicago, we're seeing a higher spend per transaction. So we're seeing those spends kind of add up much more quickly. Speaks a lot about the arts data earlier, talking about people that stay overnight, they're going to spend more money. This kind of correlates a lot with the visitor spending we see in this data as well. Lastly, a lot of information on international data. So there's certainly some momentum in the region. This is an example of data that our company brings in for the Tampa St. Pete area. We're working on a custom study specifically for Visit St. Pete Clearwater, what's happening in Pinellas County. Our team should be delivering that by the end of this month. To understand, this is again broadly for the region in 2023, visitation up significantly year over year, getting close to the 2019 levels. So we'll have some information for you. How is that aligning specifically for Pinellas County? And just a couple other examples of some custom work that we've done already and more to come in the pipeline. Media campaign performance, Latin America sales. We have a really broad monthly summary report that really brings a lot of these sources together that, again, I know Eddie and his team are keeping a close eye on. For example, passenger throughput at the airports and what are those top markets in terms of visitation to the area. So that's the conclusion of the report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments? Phil?
Back when you were speaking about the distance people travel, 250, 500 more, was that specifically people staying overnight, or is that everybody?
So there's a mix, Phil. So the data can be can be shown either way. So if the device is measured as staying overnight, we can measure specifically if they're staying overnight, how far are they traveling, but then also if it's a day visit, how far are they traveling. And that distance is measured, it's called a common evening location, is where that device lives, and common daytime location where they go during the day. So we're kind of using all those calculations. So once they come to the market, using those mileage calculations to understand that.
We found it to beneficial, at least I have, that we look at the data from a standpoint of those that are spending at least one night and those that are just day trippers. Because when you mix them together, it becomes kind of confusing.
Absolutely, yeah. So the dashboards really offer a lot of flexibility, a lot of filtering, a lot of ability to kind of click and understand and kind of dive deep into the data, not just kind of top line results, which a lot of the summaries are going to tell us, but the team does have the ability to kind of dive in and roll up their sleeves, look at specific date periods, weeks, months, seasons, and understand that difference between the day and the overnight visitor.
Clyde.
Hi, thank you. Question on the hotel trend slide where the hotel supply drops so much in the February area. What generates a change of hotel supply? Because I don't think we have that in the left graph.
It's just a number of days in the month. February is a shorter month, yeah. Just an example of the fact that the supply fluctuates on a monthly basis. But it's otherwise, we do have a way to normalize that. We have other examples where we looked at on a daily basis to take out that, the variability between the months. That's all.
Any other questions or comments? Well, thank you. I appreciate the information.
Thank you very much.
Good job. And next, we're going to move on to the destination metrics with Eddie Kirsch.
So as Eddie walks up, just want to say, Symphony, Eddie and his team, they identified this program last year, said this is something that we think is useful for us to identify information, help tell the story, and also easier for outside folks looking in to understand that data. Symphony, the presentation you just saw is some of the capabilities that the system has, and now Eddie's going to talk to how we're starting to use it.
Yeah, so as you guys know, you probably have seen some Symphony dashboards in the presentations prior, but we're adding more in. We'll be adding in the credit card spending and the mobile location data now moving forward and providing that to you on a monthly basis. We think it gives you a little bit better of a feel for our visitors than the monthly survey reports, where we might just wait till we have a little bit more collected so we have a better sample there. So jumping into the destination metrics, a general traveler sentiment for the month of January. Most people felt about where they felt last year in terms of whether or not January was a good time for them to travel. It did go down in the past 3 months. Costs are really the main factor here. We see the top 4 results being cost-related responses in terms of factors impeding their travel. And again, this is a survey of American travelers likely to travel in the next 12 months across the United States. Looking at our own data, jumping into the January data, what we saw is really only a slight decline from our tourism development tax collections. We did have a lower level of occupancy in January, but our rate was actually slightly higher than what it was. Our occupancy was a little bit higher than what it was in 2022. We did notice a trend, as Patrick mentioned, of other Florida destinations, especially Florida beach destinations, all kind of underperforming with regard to occupancy and most underperforming with regard to rate. And then for the vacation rental, we have a continued growth with rate, but occupancy is not keeping up to that. And then we also have some pipeline data, kind of a different view of things this month for you guys. So looking at the tourism development tax collections, we had 8.2 million in collections in January of 2024, down from 8.3 million in 2023. On the right side here, you can see the local option share and how it's being broken down. But for the most part, it was just a small decline from last year. When we look at our hotel performance data, we see the demand. You can kind of see that just slightly above where it was in 2022 on the right corner there, but below where it was in 2023. And as I said previously, we're down in occupancy, up in ADR. It is kind of interesting to see us fall really kind of in the middle line with occupancy with regard to 2022 and 2023. And then this is a look at our other Gulf Coast destinations and the difference in occupancy change, rate change, and revenue per available room. And you can kind of see this overall trend with our Gulf Coast destinations. Where we look at other Florida destinations, there are some DMOs or destinations that did improve from where they were last year. But the ones that look closer to us, that have more of that beach, maybe a little bit higher cost to vacation, did see some declines. And then moving on to the vacation rental performance, again, rate was a little bit higher, our occupancy lower, and you can kind of see the 5-year trends. I tried to make them similar to the STR numbers that we see, and that ADR has just continued to grow year after year. Occupancy really kind of going back and forth there. And then just to look at that guest origin map, it's not too surprising, but it does sort of confirm that, you know, the Northeast and the Midwest and the state of Florida are markets where people are coming and they're staying overnight. Looking at the hotel pipeline, again, you see this build up to 2026, as we've talked about before. This is color-coded by area, so we do see that Clearwater has something either currently actively underway or proposed and planned through 2028. We also have projects in St. Petersburg and elsewhere. Really, 2026 looks to be, if this all happens, like a year where we add a lot of rooms into our market. Looking ahead, we have quarterly forecast data that sort of gives us hopefully a little bit of what to expect moving forward. So we do see our rate pretty much remaining steady month to month through the rest of the year. We have kind of a gap in occupancy, as you guys are aware. In January, that does continue in February. We expect to see that really shrink and get back to where we were last year. And yeah, the forecast is really in line with kind of the other information that we're seeing, that our domestic market maybe has softened a little bit. Travel costs do affect people's ability to visit our destination. So this is kind of a lineup of these three different things looking through June of 2025. August is that first month where we have a forecast of positive occupancy, but we do kind of see that kind of going down and then moving forward fairly positively after that. This is a look at the key data, which is our vacation rental data over the same time period. This isn't a forecast. This is what we're seeing in that dashboard. So for the most part, we are seeing rate really kind of be what it was last year. With regard to May of 2025 and June of 2025, where we see that number really kind of dive down, there's only about 100 nights of data in that, whereas now through April of 2025, there's at least 1,000 nights. So it's just a variability of how much data that we have towards June of 2025. We do see occupancy, again, kind of closing in on that window. And again, it's about August where we see kind of where we were last year. Looking at our demographics and recapping some of 2023, overall, we had slightly more visitors, or we estimate slightly more visitors in 2023 than we had in 2022. However, they reported staying a little less often overnight, and we're likely to possibly stay fewer nights. We did see a rise in survey respondents that we identified as baby boomers, and we also saw a rise in some household income numbers, which we are investigating further. There's two different kind of things there, so we are diving into that data and looking a little bit more into what's going on there. And then in terms of interest, there were some differences when we looked at the generation of interest that I'll point out to you. Overall, we had about 15.8 million visitors in 2023, $6.6 billion of direct visitor spending, 10.8 billion in total economic impact, 419 million estimated in tax revenues to Pinellas County, and 6.5 million room nights in 2023. This is a look at the calendar year profile of our visitor, and you know, it is a calendar year, so it's a little bit difficult to take away a lot because the visitor in January might be different than the visitor in August. But overall, you know, as we sort of said, there were fewer average nights in market. We saw a little bit of we saw more survey respondents who identified as boomer or older. And we saw visitor spending, though, kind of be close to where it was in 2021 and 2022. Looking at the generations of travelers, we do see some differences, although a lot of interests align. Beaches, attractions, weather, that was a factor for pretty much everyone's, you know, choosing of St. Pete Clearwater. What we did see was the special events and festivals pop up in millennials. We didn't see that in any other generation. We saw a little bit more tie of friends to family in the area from our Gen X travelers, and also a higher spend starting at Gen X and above. And then in our baby boomers, we saw something interesting. So we did see about 1,000 more survey responses from boomers than we saw in 2022. One working hypothesis, and we have to dig a little bit more, but there's a big population that has grown in the Tampa Bay region. So perhaps we're seeing more visitors, and we are seeing a little bit more visitors from areas of Sarasota, Tampa, Lakeland, coming and enjoying our area than we had the previous year. Moving into the visitor data and some of the new data that we'll be sharing moving forward. Again, we're sort of seeing a similar picture. We had a slightly older visitor that we saw in our mobile location data. The top origin market was Florida, but over 53% were from over 500 miles away. So from St. Pete to Atlanta, that's about 500 miles, just to kind of give you guys a picture of what that looks like. We did have 66% of our visitors who had estimated a household income of $100,000 or lower. However, the 100 to 150 made up a much greater percentage of the spend than any other income range. The other thing that we saw that was kind of interesting was in terms of the shareholder spend, it typically 80% of that in-market spend were from visitors we estimate 50 or older. And also airport traffic just really continued to grow. We saw that as well. So this is the mobile location data and some of the data that Patrick sort of already shared. But again, if you look at the demographic estimates in the right-hand corner, you see the 65 and older at 19%, 5 points higher than any other destination. And again, about 35% coming from the state of Florida, visitors elsewhere, making up the rest of that. Looking at our credit card spending data, again, 50. If you were 50 and older, it looks like you spent a lot more in the destination, or maybe you provided the dinner for the people of your party. And then looking at our airport volume and traffic, we had about 1.1 million visitors through both PIE and Tampa. In terms of a breakdown, that's about 1 million through Tampa and about 100,000 through PIE, but really strong numbers compared to where we were last year. That's the extent of this presentation. I know it's a lot, so if you guys have questions, I'd be happy to answer anything.
Any questions? Doreen.
Eddie, just wondering, in my conversations with Brian, I found it interesting to maybe have a recap for the council about where the data information that you all use. I mean, we hear the reports, but what your team puts together, where the sources come from, It was interesting hearing about Symphony and how they work. And so, you know, you're constantly adding data sources and what that means for the behind the scenes, the teams crunching the numbers. I think it would be interesting for the council to hear that as well. And also a point that I had made to Brian was, while the STAR report amalgamates all the information, obviously from the hoteliers, and Key Data has been working with the vacation rental portion, I think it's important that we, VSPC, strive to get more involvement of the management companies and the sources that are supplying those vacation rental guests, so that our survey information and then what we're looking at is more robust. And so just asking if you can work with Key Data to try to, you know, boost that.
Yeah, definitely. Right now, we have about 60 properties reporting 2,500 rooms of data. So that's about the market size that Key Data currently has in our area. But yes, we will be working with Holly and the Key Data team to try to identify companies that could really help us get more of those numbers in to that data set.
Great, thank you.
Great, that was a great point. Chuck, you had a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So when we get a new car and we have to learn all the whistles and bells, as we've been talking about Symphony for a while. I know how excited you are, and it was an excellent presentation by Patrick. So how long is it going to take you to digest all the tools that you've been given, and just kind of what do you see as a snapshot over the next year between you and Katie using all these?
Yeah, you know, we already are. So I think two things that we've seen that have popped up in the visitor profile certainly has been the rise of this baby boomer visiting our destinations. So the ability to have us then look at the mobile location data, to look at the credit card spend, to look at all these different places of our origin markets really helps us determine, okay, if we're seeing this change in the population, does that mean that there's a new area of opportunity for us? And how would we go about evaluating that? So from our perspective, it's a very practical tool for us, and it has been very helpful in terms of just looking at this change in data or looking at any sort of thing that might fall outside of what we would expect to happen. Just more views of that gives us a better picture of what's actually happening.
Thank you, Eddie. And then the last to follow up is for Brian. So now we've got this new tool, and we're seeing this movement of our guests in the area. How it will influence you for when you're doing the judging for whether it's elite events or capital funding, or really more elite events? Are you going to target now more for the visitor that's coming, the newer profile visitor, or are you going to try to get back the younger visitor by spending a little bit more dollars on some younger events?
Well, I'm happy to say that for the first time ever, we have a chief marketing officer that I'm going to rely on to guide us in that direction. But that's a question, and what you're talking about is how long is it going to take to figure out how to maximize the abilities and capabilities of Symphony and the data we're looking at. We have so much data, and for 9 months, I've been looking at this data, trying to figure out, what is the key data, what is, pun not intended, and what do we use to influence our marketing strategies? And just because you see a trend, does that mean you need to change course on marketing strategies? I don't know the answer to that. Steve, he is looking into that, and he's elbow deep in it now. And so I'm looking forward to the coming months and having a better answer for you.
Thank you.
Phil?
Quick question, back on the key figures, at 6.5 million room nights, is that hotel rooms or is that all accommodations?
All accommodations. That's a estimate based off the survey numbers as well as the data that we know. So hotel rooms and things.
Hotels as well as the ERBs?
Yeah, correct, yeah.
Doreen, go ahead.
One more question, and it's kind of an embarrassing question, but this time of the year, when we're looking at January figures, and we're saying that 34, almost 35% are still coming from Florida, I'm looking at the hoteliers in the room, and I just find that surprising because, you know, if they're coming from in-state and staying with us, I mean, it just seems like our rooms are filled with people that are 500-plus miles away. So I'm curious.
I think I would say that those people that are within the Florida, this destination, when you looked at it, I also thought of the people that are to destination for homes and stuff like that, where they're wintering in Florida, they're wintering in Fort Myers or in Lakeland or whatever, and now the family's here, or now they're taking a break and going to the beaches to here. And so I think that's part of that January, February business. It's amazing when you talk to people and you find, oh, they're from Fort Myers. And it's like, well, they wanted to get away for different reasons, and the arts and our beaches and restaurants are a little different or whatever. And so I think that's part of it. My other comment is when you look at this, and I great that you see January and that soon a report, but I think also as you get this, look at seasonality. As a hotelier, we look at the winter, the high season, we look at the summer, and we look at the fall. And you kind of market different ways we do with the brands and everything towards those areas. So that's another way you can kind of look at it for spend and who comes and so forth. The boomers could be January because there's no school break. But come April, there could be another generation. So we kind of look at it that way. So just to give you that idea.
Yeah, I also think there's a lot more continued education. So conferences and you know, those have become more, you know, for a while they weren't doing them, people weren't spending the budget on it, but now they are spending the budget on those kind of things for continued ed, so they'll have conferences. And so I think, you know, I think that can lend itself as to why Floridians are still traveling. And, you know, and thank goodness we have those conventions that we can do that. But I think that plays a lot into why Floridians come. Clyde?
I would just confirm that I think that's about average for what we see. And so many of them are from even within Pinellas County. You know, fortunate to work most Sundays. And where are you from? Seminole, you know, Palm Harbor. And just, you know.
To add to your comment, Chair, on the meetings, I would say that probably for the month of January, February, for our hotel, it's probably, I know it's above 50%.
Yeah, yeah. And Clyde knows that I live in Treasure Island, and I'm at his hotel pretty regularly, so.
We
just
love
down
our
the street.
locals.
Yeah, so just down the street, and he has a huge local just from the surrounding that go there just for, you know, weekends and stuff, so. So any other comments or questions on this subject before I turn it over to Brian? So I'm going to turn it over to Brian. Some finance report that he wants to do, but Brian, I also want you to kind of give us an update on staffing. I know you've been working really hard on getting staffing up to date, and I think it's worth you bringing that after you talk about finances on where we are on staffing, and you know, and if we're at 100% yet, and you know, and I know people are new in their role, but if they're taken off and it's a good fit, that kind of thing.
Certainly, and the finance report will be quick. You have the finance report in front of you. If you've got any questions on that, I'm happy to answer them.
While everyone's looking, you got any highlights?
Perfect. Highlights of finance report. So essentially what you see here up at the top, the total resources, you'll see that's at 7.2 or 7.6% of budget. That has the reserves. There are significant reserves both on the capital and marketing side of things. These numbers on the operating and promotional direct programming look like they're behind. I will tell you this is through February. We do have obviously a significant portion of the budget on the operating side is through our agencies, and those advertising contracts are in place, and buys are in progress now, and estimates are being received. So you'll see those numbers bump up during the next report. As far as staffing goes, so 9 months ago, there were a significant number of vacancies within the organization. That's no secret. We did have all 4 of the the 3 vice president positions, as well as the chief marketing officer, were vacant. And I'm proud to report that we've got the chief marketing officer, Steve, who you all met last month, on board. All the VPs hired, or excuse me, 2 of the 3 VPs hired. And we are currently interviewing and moving forward with the short list of candidates for that final Vice President of Business Development, which is a key position and oversees all of our sales departments, meetings, global travel, sports, film. So we're excited to get that position on board and fill out the executive leadership team. Also in the departments, Jason came on. That was we outsourced all of the PR prior to Jason being there with our agencies. We've brought that in-house now. We've provided Jason an additional position to keep up with all the work that he's doing. So that'll be 2 internal public relations communications positions that we'll have filled, I believe, next week is the first day there. And then in the digital side, Eddie's beefed up his team to really dive into the data. And so we've got the VP of Business Development that we're interviewing for. Other than that, throughout the department, we've got a new Midwest sales rep for the meeting side who starts, I know we made the selection and we signed her paperwork, so she's starting this week or next week. Next week, Terry tells me. So that'll be full. So we'll only have 3 vacancies left after that. So we're chucking along. And again, I just want to commend the entire Visit St. Pete Clearwater team who was there prior to me being there, who has joined since. They've really done a lot, and I commend them for that.
Any questions on the budget finance? Chuck?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So kudos to fill all those vacancies in 9 months. That was a Herculean effort, so thank you. My question is to do with budgeting, staffing budgeting. So you're now almost going to use your entire budget, I would think, because what you paid people 2 years ago is not market anymore. So how has it affected your budget as you've placed all these new people? Were they all at the higher end of the position's advertised budget? And if so, once again, are you getting close to redlining on staffing budgeting? And in addition to that, it sounds like you've hired 2 new positions that probably weren't budgeted. You mentioned the communications manager as a new position. So just want to talk about that line item in your budget.
So I'll mention that first. I'll speak to the communications manager. That's a new position. While it's a new position that we created, it is not an additional FTE. We pulled that from a different department, so the position was already budgeted for. It was vacant. We repurposed it. As far as the budgeting for those positions were budgeted for in the budget, and I believe on all exempt employees, we budget at the midpoint, and so a majority of these staff that we've brought in, we have brought in at or around near the midpoint.
Even more of a reason to congratulate you. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? So I'm going to give you a kind of a disappointing update. We were not successful in getting the appropriation language in the budget that would allow for beach renourishment to finish the projects that we already were scheduled without restrictions. So we were not successful with that. So what we have left is WRDA. WRDA is changing the language to kind of change the restrictiveness of Army Corps policy, and that unfortunately is probably a year away. So just that our efforts with Senator Scott were not successful, and Senator Rubio in getting that into the budget. Typically, Congress does not put proviso in a budget, and so it's not a surprise. We were just hopeful, and we were not successful. So just quick update on that. So any other discussions. We're moving on in the agenda on discussions. Any board members have comments and discussion? Mayor Ongst.
Yes, this is my last meeting. I just want to say I enjoyed working with everyone and will still be involved any way I can. I've already told Brian that. I spoke with Mayor-elect Bruce Record this morning, and he would like to join. He thinks it's a very important board, obviously. He knows it is, and so he'll look forward to being invited to join and work closely with everyone for hopefully the next 8 years.
Great. Doreen.
Just wanted to follow up on looking back behind me, Margaret and Randy. Randy, you left us with the 10 points, and just wanted to point out to all of our members that there are reasons to support the arts in Pinellas County, and I know this will be carried forward to the BCC because that's very important as we look to our future for the local arts agency in Pinellas. And then also, Margaret, this handout about community pop-ups that's on our desk, and asking people to, if I'm correct in reviewing this, at these various pop-ups, or people that can use the QR code to continuing taking the survey, so that the our cultural plan is going to be getting more information added to it. Is that correct? Okay. So, just as a reminder to everyone, all information, additional information that's provided is certainly greatly helpful. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Doreen. I appreciate you bringing that up. Any other, Phil?
It's a question for Brian, or a legislative update. There was a couple bills that were out there in the state of Florida for possibly restricting the amount of capital spend per year on certain projects. Did that go anywhere, or?
The easy answer is no legislation impacting the Pinellas County tourist development tax were passed. So
That's the right answer.
Great answer, yeah. Any other comments and questions? Okay, Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I did have a question concerning beach nourishment. It's unfortunate to hear the news that you just gave us, but the job is still not done. Does the county have plans to move forward? I know that they were working on a plan, and if the county's not moving forward, then what do you think the estimated time frame would be to finish the job?
I don't have an estimated time frame, and Barry and I discussed this at length yesterday. We are in the design phase. We are still moving forward as if, we're going to move forward, pull the trigger. We are hopeful for Army Corps to come around. But we are, like I said, we're in the design phase, and even the design phase is a year-long phase. So we're in that motion. We're not stopping. We're not slowing down. So we are moving forward and continuing on the design phase. So if we have to pull the trigger, we can pull the trigger. But we're doing everything we have to do that's required, which we'd have to do anyways. So we're not slowing down on that. So we're still going through the process. Whatever it is that it's going to take, we're going to do it. But again, we're going through all the motions we'd have to do, whether Army Corps was there or not. And when we're done with the design phase, then we go into the permitting phase, and we'll do everything that we have to do, as if this isn't an issue. We're moving forward. So, so that has not changed.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Great. Well, Brian, I do have something for you, and I probably should have Brian do this since I'm, minus a wing here. But I do have I don't have a microphone, so I have a gift for you and a certificate. We are so grateful for your years of service, not only now, but in the past. And so we truly want to show you our appreciation for your years of service and your dedication to the city of Clearwater and Pinellas County. And we have a little swag bag, lots of gifts for you. And again, thank you. And I look forward to Mayor-elect joining us, and hopefully at the next meeting. And we really, truly appreciate all of your dedication. Okay, so if there's no more discussion or comments for the good of the order, then I would look for a motion. Oh, Doreen? Microphone.
Are we set with the change for the May Budget Co. meeting with the BCC and the May 2nd? I'm sorry. Yeah. Just,
May 2nd.
yes, just to
Yes.
confirm with everyone on their calendar. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Then I would look to adjourn.
Motion
Mayor, are
to
you good? I see
adjourn.
your light on. Move to adjourn. Got it. A second? All right. Motion carried. Have a great rest of the week.